It's a personal holiday. A Marvel movie has dropped. There's honestly nothing like it. Like, even when I know from the commercial that I'm going to be disappointed, like with Thor Love and Thunder, there's still nothing quite like walking into the theater and getting my tickets scanned, knowing that I'm going to be spending time in this world with these people. So, I have seen this twice. There will be spoilers, probably starting around the like 2 minute mark. So, in Deadpool and Wolverine, we meet up with Wade Wilson. He tries to join the Avengers in the Sacred Timeline, aka the timeline where most of the MCU movies happen. He tries to join the Avengers in 2018. He doesn't, he's not able to. So then he is in his timeline, I think, which was created, by the way, thanks Variety for that article of like what happened in Deadpool 1 and 2. I wanted to watch both of them before this movie came out, but that did not work out. I wanted to rewatch them. I've already seen them, it's just been years. So in Earth 10 triple zero, no, 10 10,005. It's his birthday. He's working as a car salesman. He is the only thing he said during his application to be part of the Avengers. The only thing of note that he said was that he's looking for validation. He is looking to matter, and he thinks that joining the Avengers will give him that validation. And he is rejected. And so in his timeline, he's just working as a car salesman. It's been 6 years, and it's his birthday. And the night of his birthday party, the TVA shows up from Loki. TVA shows up to snatch him up out of his timeline. After that happens, he finds out that his timeline is in danger because a very important anchor has died. Deadpool then has to go find another anchor from another timeline, the same anchor, Wolverine, and he manages to find him. Wolverine is dealing with his own issues and does not want to help Deadpool, as you can imagine. And the only reason why he agrees to help is because he is looking for his own redemption. They go on a great adventure. The movie is funny, it is crass, it is raunchy, and that it is violently homoerotic. And I emphasis on the violent, so that means it is straight man approved, and we'll talk about that later. They're not going to call it garbage just because of how the homoeroticism is displayed so violently. It has so many great cameos. The fight scenes are spectacular. That first one, give it to me on a loop. Give it to me on a loop. The soundtrack bangs. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Let's get into the spoilers. Deadpool and Wolverine is an intro, right? It is Deadpool's intro into the MCU. It is also a wrap up. It is also an homage. And with all of that, it still feels like filler, like it doesn't really matter. Like the stuff that happened don't hold much weight, which is ironic considering the storyline is dealing with like timeline, ending and billions of people dying. So let's get into it. Starting with the good. The cameos were amazing. Chris Evans, yes, I too thought it was Captain America, who, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Cap. I think he was so self-righteous. But when he said flame on, woo! I clapped. My audience number one, theater number one that I went to was so much more live than the second audience I was with. They were great, but like we were a lot more lively the first time around. But when he said woo, I almost flew out of my seat, right? Him, my top 3 cameos were him, Elektra, and Blade, which I have not watched the Blade movies. I need to, but I know who that is. And so I was super impressed. Pretty much all of the jokes worked. There is not one joke that fell flat where I was like, ooh, that wasn't. I think Deadpool himself, the character, was fantastic. Fantastic comic relief. And I'll get into that. Ryan Reynolds was top tier. I think Hugh Jackman was top tier as Logan. I don't think the movie flip-flop between comedy and fourth wall breaking and serious well. I don't think they did it well. It's been a while since I watched Deadpool 1 and 2, but I am confident in saying that when I do rewatch them, I will think that they are both better than this movie. For Wade, I don't remember feeling as disconnected from Wade in 1 and 2 as I did in this movie. In this movie, like now that it's all over and I'm thinking about it, I was just like, I was with him when he was making me laugh. And when he was being like all sad and stuff, like I didn't, he was talking about the 9 people that he cares about. This is why he's doing this, which is great. And for me, it's pretty much undone at the very end when he says to Vanessa, I did it for you. You may not want to be with me. I did it for you. What is this, 2014? It's that line is ironic considering the joke that was made earlier when Nice Pool was like, oh, she Lady Pool had a baby and you'd never know it because like she slimmed or whatever. And Deadpool goes like, I don't think you can say that anymore. He's like, okay, it's okay. I'm a feminist. That was like a joke. But that moment between Wade and Vanessa was supposed to be sincere. And one, I don't care about Wade and Vanessa in this movie. I do not. But like that line of like, yeah, I saved billions of lives. Because if even though you don't want to be with me, I did do it for you. I'm like, what about the other 8 people? So where Deadpool's concerned, I very much was like, make me laugh, funny man, and didn't really care for like what he was fighting for. When it comes to Wolverine, like Hugh Jackman is so great, and intellectually, like I get what Wolverine's problem is, and I get it. But like this is also a character that I haven't been emotionally invested in years. And let's pause and talk about how many movies you need to have watched to fully appreciate what happened in this movie, the cameos, the nostalgic slash homage tip that it's hanging on. 21. The number is 21, which is so ironic considering Deadpool and Wolverine, it's being received, it's getting a lot of great reception, but it has a lot, if not all, of the elements that people have been criticizing Marvel Studios about. You need to have watched 21 movies and be aware of the failed Gambit movie to understand everything that's going on. And in 21, I'm talking like Elektra, Ben Affleck's Daredevil, Blades 1 through 3, the entire Fox's entire X-Men franchise, including the one that came out in 2020 that I was not aware of. Chris Evans' Fantastic Four, Michael B. Jordan's Fantastic Four, only because they included him in that little, like, very nice clip at the end, post-credit, or mid-credit, or during the credits. So, and yet, like, one of the criticisms is you have to keep up with too much to appreciate a Marvel movie nowadays. You gotta watch the shows on Disney Plus because they tie into the movies, and that is too much work to have needed to watch Miss Marvel and WandaVision to get, you know what I mean? Like, that existed on a bigger scale, and like you needed to be aware of and familiar with, if not all of those movies, most of them, which I'm familiar with most of them. But back to Wolverine and the fact that I haven't connected with him in years, I burned out on Wolverine movies way back when. I burned out, so I did not watch Logan, and I don't know. I don't remember if I watched the Wolverine. I may have. I did watch Wolverine Origins, but yeah, I get it. Like I get Wolverine's thing, but I don't feel Wolverine's thing. Yeah, I just feel like Deadpool 1 and 2 balance the serious and the jokes better than this movie. The one character who's like trauma I did connect with was Cassandra Nova. I loved Cassandra. I thought she was a fantastic villain. I think she was so very well acted. She looked creepy. She moved creepy. I loved the display of her powers. I think part of the thing, Deadpool and Wolverine is a very flashy movie between the cameos, the violence, the cursing, all the, homoerotic jokes. Very, very flashy. But when you leave the light on and really like look at it, it's like the plot is not really like for example, like Wade needs to save his timeline, which is Earth 10,005. And it's like all the people I care about are on Earth 616. So other than like your basic generic, like I hope nobody dies, I'm not really invested in this. I did not care for the dog gag. I'm not an animal person. So anytime there's a gag that relies on animals, I am left out. That dog was so ugly, which I get is the point. I was not entertained. And then Wade was tonguing it peak white people shit. I also wasn't, again, back to the fact that like this movie has all of the things that people have been complaining about regarding the MCU lately. The pools, I didn't care for that. Like Nice Pool, I liked him, but all them others coming through, I didn't really. The best part of that scene, other than like the shocker that Nice Pool does not have regeneration, was the end of it when Wolverine and Deadpool bust out of the back of the bus in that hero shot, you know, and it ends the whole thing. As for my point about the violent homoeroticism, when I was watching the movie the second time, it occurred to me that Deadpool and Wolverine is not going, despite having so many jokes about the fact that, acknowledgement, yes, about the fact that Deadpool is a queer character. He likes men, he dates men, he has slept with men. It is told in such a violent way, in a joking way, that it is straight man approved. Not all straight men, specifically the same straight men who had an issue with Fastos and Ben and Eternals, right? Fastos and Ben was like woke garbage inside of a woke trash heap that was the Eternals. But that very grounded, tender display of queerness, specifically gayness, was like, oh, stop shoving it down my throat. Like, I don't mind like inclusion, just make it natural, right? Whereas this movie has so many jokes, those same people will watch that and laugh and like, oh whoa, because every time it's mentioned, it is followed by violence. Wade mentions the fact that he's been pegged before, which pegging is done by a woman. He's been pegged before, and it's immediately followed by a fight. In the same movie that represents this queer character, this character who is not straight, this man who is not straight, so many of the violence that the men in this movie receive and do involves hurting men and their pleasure spots, gay or straight, and their pleasure spots. So we get knife through the butt, knife through the front junk. We get adamantium claws through the butt, adamantium claws through the front junk. Nice Pool gets a dart straight into his butt. So it's like, this is okay. This is not shoving it down your throat because it is, and this is not a, like I said, it's a knock on that part of the fandom, not Marvel Studios, because Marvel Studios gave us both. Is the reception of these male characters that are not straight that I want to point out and that occurred to me when I was watching it the second time. The reason why I went to see it the second time is not only because I enjoyed it, but also because I was very bothered by the fact that like I only give it a 4 out of 5. I do honestly feel like this movie should be a 5 out of 5. And if you tell me you think it's a 5 out of 5, I'm not really gonna argue with you. But I really feel like this movie should be a 5 out of 5, but for me it's not. It's a 4 out of 5 because of the reasons I mentioned. Like the biggest one just being that like it's very flashy, it's very funny, but substance wise, it ain't there. Marvel reads itself about the stumbles it's had lately, but it still lets you know that it is still that girl. The MCU is still that franchise. It's still where the money resides. This is still where you want to be, as shown by how excited Wade was to join the MCU. So, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours.